Hey gamers, it's Nightwing here. How's your Halloween going? First off, let me just say I'm not reviewing the game Simon's Quest, even though it did come out to the Virtual Console. I'm doing Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse, because it is a really cool game. Story for this game. Alright, I've added some kind of scary sound effects, so just try to stay with me. You know, it's Halloween and all. Well, this game takes place in the 15th century, but because Konami has changed the Castlevania games so much, it's kind of messed up in the official canon. They made this to be the first time that Dracula and a Belmont clashed, 250 years before Simon and him did it. But since Konami's kind of went and, you know, put the story in a shotgun and just kind of shot it out, it's kind of hard to explain. Basically, the Belmonts have all been driven out of Romania. It's up to Trevor to kind of restore the family name and defeat Dracula. That's basically it. Alright, concept for this game. Well, first off, I'm sure most of you have played a Castlevania game. I mean, you've seen most of my Castlevania reviews. I mean, you should be playing it, but that's just me. Anyway, you're probably really familiar with who the Belmont character is, whether it's Simon, Trevor, Christopher, Sonia, Richter, you know, the list goes on and on. You're pretty much familiar with who the Belmont character is and what he does. But what Konami has done a little bit different along the way is, now, Trevor is still the main character of Castlevania 3, and he still slays Dracula. That doesn't change. But what Konami wanted to do a little bit different is they wanted to give it kind of like a backstory and kind of like a Final Fantasy feel to it, where you get more than one character to join you. And each character has their own little backstory, like Grant's family was murdered by Dracula and his army, and he wants revenge, and Grant's a pirate. And you meet these characters along the way, and they join your party. I mean, I personally like that Konami did the side characters in this game. I mean, they each have their own significant uses. Like Grant's, for instance, he can jump the highest out of all the characters, but his dagger's crap. Alucard is very strong, he can turn into a bat, and he shoots fireballs. But Trevor is the only one who can really take the most damage and stuff like that. You also get to play as a future Mrs. Belmont, Selphie the Wizard, Selphie Bendez, and she has like a little wand and stuff like that. It's really weak, but she has the strongest magical attacks in the game. Actually, she might even have the strongest attacks, period, because she can destroy just about any boss. It's really cool. Alright, controls for this game. Alright, first off, let me just say I'm not going to talk about Trevor Belmont's controls. Mainly because every Castlevania game previous to this, he controls exactly like Simon. You whip, you walk, you jump, you throw items, you climb stairs. Now, for side characters like Grant, in order to climb the ceiling like that, just push up and on the B button, and he'll stick to pretty much any surface. There is a drawback to controlling Grant, though. His dagger is probably the weakest weapon in this game. Now, Selphie the Wizard, she's actually kind of a cool character to control. She jumps a little bit higher than Trevor, and you just do that by pushing the A button. And her magical attacks, all you do is push up and B, like you're going to throw an item from a Belmont. And Selphie is a lot of fun to control. She can't take a lot of hits, but her magic is really strong, and it increases the difficulty for this game to play as her. Now, Alucard is a cool character in himself. I loved Alucard from Symphony of the Night and playing the Aria and Dawn of Sorrow, especially doing the Julius Belmont run. That was really cool. Unfortunately, in Dracula 3, he kind of controls like his father. He throws fireballs by just pushing the B button, and he can shoot about 3 fireballs in like a different direction. Another cool feature for Alucard in this game is he can transform into a bat. In order to do that, just push down in B, and he'll transform into the bat. But you have to be careful because it does take away from your hearts. So instead of him throwing items, that's what he does. History of this game, and this is very interesting. Now, Sonia Belmont is actually the first Belmont in 1450 AD. She has a love child with Dracula's son, Alucard, who would be Trevor Belmont, which would explain their superhuman powers. unfortunately, Konami has officially removed this from the canon. It's Leon Belmont, the first Belmont, which kind of screws up the whole Castlevania timeline thing. Anyway, the reason why Dracula's so upset in Dracula's Curse is because his wife, Alucard's mother, Lisa, is murdered in 1476 AD in Europe, and this causes Dracula to go crazy and basically destroy the world because he's angry because his wife was murdered. This was explained in Symphony of the Night. Now, the official ending to Castlevania 3 is Trevor and Selphie get married. There you have a child who gives Christopher, and then Christopher's grandson is, of course, Simon Belmont. Then you have Joust Belmont, who uses mystical powers like his ancestor, Selphie. And, of course, Joust's son is Richter Belmont. So that kind of ties the whole thing in. And the sequel to Dracula's Curse is Curse of Darkness. Wow, that's a mouthful, huh? Alright, design for this game. Well, it's kind of hard to sum up what I think about the design of this, because for a NES game, the third Castlevania game did a lot of things that I hadn't seen done with a Nintendo Entertainment System game. The level designers and the character designers did an incredible job of putting their vision of what they saw the Castlevania universe onto the NES. Now, this game came out in 1990. It could have been put on the Super Nintendo, but Treasure was working on Super Castlevania right around the same time that this released anyway, so it wouldn't really have made sense to release that. But I'm glad this came out for the NES. I enjoyed playing through this. I enjoyed looking at this game. There was so much to see that the developers threw in with the detail, with the level design, and just the way the game plays out. It was so much fun. Alright, bad aspect of this game. You're probably wondering what I would even have wrong with this game. Well, for starters, the Medusa heads really weren't that bad in this game, but the little creatures still are, so I still don't like that. Yeah, the little creatures definitely. Another thing that I found interesting that I didn't like is that you could only control 2 characters, when in Symphony of the Night they explain that you have 3 characters, but whenever you meet another character and you decide to have them join your party, then another person has to leave, and I just think that wasn't a really cool thing. Another thing I didn't like is when switching between characters, say if Alucard was all-powerful and stuff like that, and I switched to Trevor, then Trevor would be weak. So, alright, good aspect of this game. I loved playing as Alucard. I know he's still not the same as the Symphony of the Night, but his whole demeanor and how he portrays himself is very, very cool. And I have to say that turning into a bat to get around annoying obstacles is very cool. And the fireballs are wicked powerful. I had to say it was so cool to play as Alucard. Also, Death had a lot of really cool things in this game, but I don't want to spoil too much. You'll have to play through that yourself. But the boss fight with Death is very, very cool. The final scene of the Castlevania 3 is very reminiscent to the first Castlevania, which I liked a lot on the NES, and the battle with Dracula is very, very cool. And I can't help but spoil it because it's just immensely cool. Dracula has 3 forms, very tough to beat, very, very challenging game. This is probably one of the hardest Castlevania games I've ever played, but I enjoyed it so much. You guys have a happy Halloween. I give this game an 8 out of 10. I think that's fair. You guys have a safe Halloween night, and God bless.
Don't touch that remote.
Now that you have learned what you have learned,